The Board of Trustees, is it working? The Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the regular monthly board meeting being held on September 19th, 2023. We have a quorum with all members present. Please join me in a moment of silence to observe as you feel appropriate. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag led by Sava Petri from Navarro Middle School.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, of liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, and is indivisible.
Thank you. Please be seated. Dr. Nivens, are there any recognitions or awards?
Yes, Madam President, we do have some recognitions. I'll turn it over to Ms. Sonia Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Board President, Dr. Nivens, trustees. The 2023 National Technology Student Association Conference was recently held in Louisville, Kentucky, and approximately 7,500 students from across the country, including Germany and Turkey, attended from June 28th through July 2nd to compete in various events that challenge students' design skills and creative thinking in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. The following students placed in the top 3 in their category. From Foster High School, in forensic science, placing 3rd, Isabella Wynn and Romina Rincon Cruz. These students are advised by Karen Bodie. Congratulations. From George Ranch High School, under the direction of Brian Saunier, placing 1st in architectural design, Camden Crawford, Quentin Fernandez, Jake Miller, and Alexis Prevet, and placing 1st in geospatial technology, Quentin Fernandez, James Lockbickler, and Alexis Prevet. From Lamar Consolidated High School, under the direction of Christian Roush, placing 2nd in future technology, Bailey Bird, placing 3rd in drone UAV, James Bennett, Chase Chang, Mateo Rivera, Joshua Thomas, and Kendrick Tercius. Congratulations. From Lehman Junior High School, under the direction of Jared Williams, placing 2nd in video game design, Jeffrey Rapaki, Grant Nowotny, Max Morafilos, Jose Bernal, Danny Tiffin, Vishnav Aburi, and placing 3rd in coding, Vishnav Aburi and Grant Nowotny. That's it. Come on. The team from Randall High School couldn't make it here tonight, so I will announce them, though. Third place virtual reality was Anish Jana, Amara Lakhani, Layla Lawhern, Alishba Sheikh. But from FCCLA from Reading Junior High, under the direction of Miss Christy Chambers, Zara Sheikh of Reading Junior High, FCCLA, won first place in the nation for her public policy advocate project promoting Spanish language education in Texas. And lastly, representing FFA from Fulshire High School under the direction of Brad Claypack, the following students earned their Texas FFA Lone Star State degree, which is the highest degree you can earn at the state level. To earn this accolade, students have record books they must compete, SAE, program experience, participation, community service hours, and grades that are a C or higher, and have been an FFA member for at least 3 years. Our students are Catherine Tompkins, Taylor Hirsch, Chloe Hines, Riley Dawson, and Rihanna Crocker. Thank you so much. If I could have members of the Finance Department come forward at this time. Lamar CISD has been awarded the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 21-22 fiscal year by the Association of School Business Officials International, representing a significant achievement by the district and reflecting our commitment to the highest standards of school system financial reporting. This nationally recognized program reviews and critiques school district accounting practices as represented in the annual comprehensive financial report and recognizes school districts that adhere to sound principles and reporting procedures. The district has been awarded this certificate for the past 23 years. Now, earlier this month, the State Board of Education honored 15 school volunteers with the 2023 Heroes for Children Award for their outstanding dedication and service to Texas public schools and communities. Established in 1994, the Heroes for Children Award celebrates citizens who go above and beyond to positively impact Texas public school students' lives through volunteer service. And each year, the 15-member board recognizes one hero from each of their districts. This year, Millie Reed, would you please come forward? Representing Lamar CISD, SBOE District 7 was nominated by Fort Bend County Treasurer Bill Record. Millie Reed has been an exceptional volunteer at Lamar Consolidated ISD for the past 7 years. She has served as president of the PTO and as a community representative for the Site-Based Decision-Making Committee. A tireless advocate for students and families, she worked to improve communication between the school and the community and has been instrumental in raising funds for school initiatives and programs. Her ability to motivate and lead volunteers is outstanding. She's a strong supporter of equity and inclusion and has worked to ensure that all students have access to a high-quality education. Her efforts as a sponsor for numerous school endeavors include Teacher Appreciation Week and student field trips, positively impacting students, teachers, and staff. Millie is a dedicated and skillful member for the youth housed at the Fort Bend County Juvenile Probation Center, where she has formed positive relationships and has become a role model to them. In addition to mentoring, Millie also volunteers as a guest presenter and speaker to the 3 units of juveniles in the detention center, giving presentations to educate them about finances and their financial responsibilities. And she's a parent on the Silver Track. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Millie Reed.
I just want to tell everybody that I've known I've known her for several years, and I am encouraged by her enthusiasm. And not everybody has the ability in their schedule to offer as much time to the school system as she does, but everybody can give what they can if your kids are involved, especially. And I just wanted to say you have been an inspiration for me, that you have gotten in there in the trenches sometimes, and you're always encouraging other families and other parents that are complaining online to like stop complaining and get involved. And anybody who's out there who's interested in getting involved and you don't know how, you can contact me or Dr. Nevins, and we can put you in touch with this woman, because she will mentor you. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do for our district, and thanks for being a great mentor for the other parents out there in LCISD.
Thank you. And Millie. Thank you so much for doing everything you do for our students. For my wife as a teacher, you step up and you see the need and you meet the need there. So for what you do, the way you show up, the way you love, the way you care, the way you volunteer, and the way you speak truth to other parents about getting involved in their children's lives, I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. Yeah. Great job.
Ms. Reed, and as an extra special, cherry on top, your award was actually made by the students in our adult transition program. And so, yeah, they're very glad to make that for you. All right, trustees, we've got one more recognition this evening. We've got representatives here from the Rosenberg-Richmond Helping Hands to share information about their organization, plans for future growth, and how they can partner with Lamar CISD to serve our community. Rosenberg-Richmond Helping Hands is a nonprofit organization that helps people in crisis by providing basic needs on a short-term basis. And with us this evening are Executive Director Michael Gutierrez and Ms. Wendy Dominguez.
Thank you, Board, and thank you, Dr. Nevins, for allowing us and giving us this honor to come before you and speak about our organization. Before I begin, I'd also like to introduce my Board President, Larry Wilkinson. He's in the audience, and my Assistant ED, Carol Corda. As she mentioned, we do serve the underserved in Fort Bend County. Our mission has been to provide essential services, food and clothing, for the last 38 years here in this community. And we have actually moved from Morton Street. We were in Morton Street many years ago. It was 2 little houses, and then we moved to the location we're currently at now, which is 902 Collins. We provide an average of about 1 million pounds of food per year to the actual clients that come to see us, and we're servicing about 12,000 households each year. And that usually equates to about 35,000 to 40,000 individuals. We want to actually just state how important the food drives that the school district and Lamar CISD school districts have been providing for us and for our clients. Without those, we wouldn't be able to continue to provide a lot of the canned goods, non-perishable goods to our clients that we actually serve. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Wendy. She's going to give you some more statistical information.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and I'm thankful to be here with you today. I wanted to give a little bit more information on our relationship with Lamar School District, because it's a very synergistic, close relationship, and we'd like to see that continue. Over 90% of our clients are in your school district, so we do service the district very, very much as part of our business. We estimate that we provide regular services of food and clothing to about the equivalent of 5% of your student body in all of LCISD. That's a rough estimate, but anyway, we are very much connected. And you have provided on an annual basis over 2.5 tons of food from your food drives to us. And this year, I think we're just under a ton. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more before the end of the year. But your food drives, as Michael mentioned, are just critical to our continued ability to service the community. We also have a very great working relationship with Common Threads and with Alida. And we are always exchanging clothing. If she has surpluses, she brings them to us. If we have surplus jackets, for example, we'll bring them to her. So we have a very good working relationship with Common Threads. And we also participate in your back-to-school activities and really enjoyed doing that this past year. In terms of future relationship, just to set the stage, we've seen about 100% increase in need in the community from 2020, 2021 timeframe to current year. That does not include the COVID activity, which we were in a completely different operating mode during COVID, but if you sort of subtract that out, we've doubled the number of clients that we're trying to see. And at the same time, food availability and cost has gone up, and we're not getting as much food from, we're not getting as much food from Houston Foods Bank as we've gotten in the past, and so being able to feed the community has become very critical to us, and we're seeing more people. We're also looking at our own facility and looking at ways to expand it so that we can serve more people more effectively. So your continued support with your food drives and anything else you guys can think of to help us out is just really critical to us, and we thank you so much for that effort. And if you have any suggestions for us on how we can better serve your students, your families in the school district, we're all ears. So we're here to serve too.
And if you haven't had the time or the opportunity to come by our organization to take a tour, we ask that you consider coming by and taking a tour so you can actually see firsthand the clients that we're actually servicing. You'd be surprised that they come to us from every socioeconomic background. Some of them could also be individuals that work here at Lamar CISD. So we ask that you come by and take a tour of our facility. I have a few dates that I'm gonna throw out there. If you are available, August the 2nd, which is a Monday, August the 3rd, October 2nd, which is a Monday, October the 3rd, which is a Tuesday, or October the 9th, which is another Monday. And I encourage you to come through our distribution time, which is 9:30 to 1:30, because that's when our clients come in to actually receive the services. So I would ask Dr. Nivens and all the other board members that have not come by our organization to take a tour, you're welcome to come by to see firsthand the clients that we're actually servicing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I do have some brochures and some cards. So if you do happen to know someone that's struggling with food insecurities, please send them our way, because there are a lot of people out there that are dealing with these types of issues. And sometimes, they're not going to come out front. But if you happen to know someone, please, I have some brochures and I have some cards of the resources that we actually have and we provide to our clients. Thank you so much again.
Dr. Nivens, are there any introductions?
No, Madam President, there are no introductions.
Okay, we'll now have board member reports. Trustees, please keep your comments and reports to 1 to 2 minutes. Who wants to start? Want to start over here? You're good.
I'm not going to mention all the stuff I've been doing, but I did give a report to our assistant here for the minutes. But I will mention two things very briefly. Last Friday night, I went to the Beasley Cultural Family Night, and I got to hear the Lamar High School Mariachi Band for their first performance outside of their school, so that was kind of cool. The second thing I want to mention briefly is I got to meet Dr. O'Neill, also known as Shaquille O'Neal. The reason I mention this is because he invited me to his restaurant opening along with 200 of his other close friends. Not too long ago, he opened a restaurant in Richmond, but when I met him, I said, hey, I would love for you to come and speak to our athletes. And he pointed me to his assistant that was hanging out, and I gave him my card. So all that to say that they have not contacted me yet. They said they're going to. If anybody here knows Shaq, he does have a home in Sugar Land, I've told, but I would love to get him to come and to speak and inspire our student body. So.
It definitely has been a busy few weeks. Myself, I've tried to visit every school in all the color tracks, and I've accomplished that last week. I've finished, and then I guess I'll have to start working my way back around. But it's good to see how hard everyone's working and how excited so many students are about being back in school. We've been busy as a board. We've been to the Gulf Coast Area Association had our annual or biannual update on legal happenings from the legislature since this summer. And last week, many of us got to go and meet Commissioner Mike Morath at the Safari, Texas, and hear about the changes that's coming in public education. So, and other than that, and of course, the most gorgeous celebration of an opening of a new school that I've seen in a long time, the Adrian Matthew Gray Elementary was held today, and I think we did a very good job of building that school, and they're going to do a very good job of maintaining it and having a great education through that school with Adrian as their mentor in spirit. So anyway, but thank you to all who helped put that together, because I know it was a lot of hard work.
Again, not gonna, a lot of events, a lot of busyness. We figured out that 4 on almost 5 out of the 7 nights of the week of ours is filled with school district events and all that. So I'm just extremely proud of our staff, the way they show up even after hours for our students, the way all the extra hours they put, training and hosting events at the schools, and our coaches that stay, and our instructors, band, all that. So just seeing a lot of that really awesome stuff this past month. And so thank you to them.
Okay. Dr. Nivens, do you have a superintendent report?
Yes, ma'am. Mine will be very brief. We've been having conversations. We just had a board meeting a couple weeks ago. Since then, you know, we've had some tremendous gains in transportation. I wanna do a public service announcement or request rather job opportunities for everybody. If anyone likes to drive a bus, we're paying well, and we'll pay for you to get your CDL. And so that goes out to the entire community. So if anybody would like to become a bus driver for us, we are definitely accepting applications. But also, you know, I want to give a special shout out to Ms. Reed. Also, you know, as a former principal and longtime teacher and principal and person on the classroom, on the campus, I know how important it is to have volunteers and the right volunteer. So you can have the volunteer that comes in and they try to find everything that's wrong. Or you can have the right volunteer like Ms. Reed that comes in and is solution oriented and understands that we are partners and understands that this is a partnership, and she wants the absolute best for her kids, everybody else's kids in our school system. And so I just want to say a special thank you and take this time because I know how important that is, and it's invaluable. And so the simple fact that we gave you this recognition tonight doesn't compare to the impact that you have on us and the students in our school system. So again, I just want to say thank you, and thank you to your family for sharing you with us. And so I thank you all for that too.
Okay, Ms. Cooper, are there any public comments?
If you wish to address the board, you must fill out a card and submit it before proceeding officer calls the meeting to order. While speaking, generally, you have 5 minutes to address the board. The proceeding officer may establish an overall time limit for public comment and adjust the time allotted to each speaker when necessary to accommodate a large number of speakers. However, no speaker shall be given less than 1 minute. All of this is in compliance with HB 2840. Each speaker tonight will have 5 minutes. While the board values hearing from members of public, trustees may not respond to comments as they are prohibited by law from discussing or deciding any subject that is not on the board's publicly noticed agenda. Speakers having complaints against individual district employees or trustees may only address the board after filing a complaint form in the manner provided for the board policy DGBA employee complaints, F&G student and parent complaints, or GF public complaints. The preceding officer or designee shall determine whether a speaker has filled a complaint according to the policy. Any speakers who complain of an individual district employee or trustee during public comment will be directed by the preceding officer to stop addressing the board and will refer to the speaker in the appropriate complaint policy. At this time, our first speaker is going to be Mr. Hayden Chavez. No, Hayden. Is it, I'm sorry, is it correct? Right, Hayden? Chang, I'm sorry about that, Hayden Chang.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Hayden Chang. Lamar Consolidated High School is in an awkward position. We have an ongoing update for our roof, new laptops, and more plans for the future. But these improvements are overshadowed by greater problems. We are missing an English teacher. The position has been vacant since the start of the year. Our teachers have their mornings occupied by training that doesn't do good for anyone. Above all, our students are not being raised with a culture of excellence or success, but a culture of getting by. As you all know, my school does not have great test scores. I spoke about it last year. We have an AP exam pass rate around 15%. Our STAR scores are not up to the Texas standard in some areas. Lamar Consolidated High School is no stranger to academic failure. That being said, why are we scoring so low? Why are we less academically competitive than, say, George Ranch? Most people would immediately jump to money, and I agree. However, it is not the only factor. It is not only that we are not as wealthy as other schools, but that education is not a focus within LCHS. But why? Why is education not a focus? Because there is a precedent of failure. Because there is an expectation that our students are worse behaved. Because we do not produce good results, we are not given the support we need. As some may point out, the district does have success initiatives in schools. There is work being done, and there are people dedicated to helping our students. How then can I still claim our students' education is not being prioritized? The district, in my opinion, has not taken any effective action to promote success in LCHS. The programs I have seen, Mustang Learning Center, teacher sit-ins, etc., have not had a measurable effect on our students. To demonstrate my point, let's examine the new program, Professional Learning Team, or PLT. PLT is, to my knowledge, a district initiative meant to encourage team planning amongst teachers for the improvement of STAR scores and general education of students. However, it is simply not effective. We traded valuable time for students and teachers to correspond in the morning for very little return. Morning clubs, sports, and tutorials were canceled in favor of PLT. Even worse, teachers and students have not seen any improvements as a result of this program. When asked about PLT, one teacher stated, "We give up 30 minutes every day to be told how we should plan for our teaching." The problem with this initiative is the same as every other initiative I've been seeing. They don't effectively do anything. But why don't these initiatives do anything? Initiatives fail in 3 key areas. First, failure to tackle the heart of the issue. Second, failure to execute efficiently. And third, failure to set proper measurable goals. Many initiatives fall in multiple areas at once. PLT, as I mentioned, does not tackle the heart of the issue and was not executed well. Unfortunately, it seems that the failure of these programs is read as, well, Lamar students are so hard to teach, or all these kids are just stupid. Even more unfortunately is that these incorrect assumptions seem to be at the head of the district's attitude towards LCHS as a whole. We mistakenly attribute the failure of our programs to the attitudes of our students. Instead of examining the problems in our initiatives, we continue to blame students. Furthermore, we are doing a disservice to our high-level students by making lower-level students the only demographic we regard. What about our NASA HAS participants? What about our AP Capstone students? What about our top 10 students? Our high-level students deserve representation in our schools as much as any other student. Now, education is a delicate balance. In no way do I want to imply that this is easy. But to solve this problem, we must stand on a unified front. If we wish to claim ourselves as a district of innovation, we must be committed to innovation in education. Instead of throwing initiatives at the wall and hoping something sticks, we need to clearly define our goals. In our planning, we must be aware of those 3 key points of failure. Even if it takes longer, we must ensure our program is effective. I believe we can all agree that taking 3 years to create a highly effective program is much better than spending those 3 years with a new program each year. Now, I'm sure there are individuals who disagree with me. I understand Lamar Consolidated High School does not have a great reputation. We are not a great academic school when it comes down to it, but this does not justify the disparity between our schools. If students are put at a disadvantage, we must endeavor to give them an equitable education. I would also like to remind you of our mission statement: to educate all students by ensuring access to a superior education through inspired leadership among parents, teachers, administrators, and staff, allowing students to achieve their full potential to participate in future social, economic, and educational opportunities in their community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is Rebecca Clark.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Nivens. I am here to speak on the Senate Bill 763 item that's for future agenda regarding the district's consideration of hiring chaplains and/or social workers for our schools. It's only a few pages, but there's a lot to unpack in this legislation, and unless you're familiar with the derivation of its content, it will likely appear harmless at worst and like a good idea at best. For brevity's sake, however, and to keep people's eyes from glazing over, I will keep it simple. In short, I am not in favor of this for many reasons, some of which include the following. First, this legislation does not require the chaplain or social worker be certified by any valid governmental organization or entity. Additionally, they aren't required to have a degree or any verification of a background in decision-making on disciplinary or mental health issues. They are not mental health care providers nor educators. To whom will these people be held accountable? Why would we want an uncertified individual having unsupervised, confidential sessions with our children? While most may be genuine in their desire to help our kids, we have no way of knowing anyone's true intentions, and I see this as a huge liability for the district. This leads me to another concern. Who is doing the background checks on these people? How will parents find and access this information? Will we pay someone to post it on our district website and maintain its veracity? Not only is this a liability, like I said, but will cost the district, which means the taxpayers have to foot the bill. And for what? What's the upside? What services will these people render that we don't already provide via counselors and teachers who are certified, have background in education and/or mental health, and have metrics they must meet in order to attain and maintain their jobs? They cannot diagnose and prescribe treatment to children, so what exactly will they do and why will they do it? Social workers and chaplains would be redundant within our district, so why would we want to allocate funds to pay for them when those funds can go toward things our children truly lack and need? Lastly, a chaplain can be of any religious persuasion, potentially including ones that are diametrically opposed to that of the child they will be counseling. This is a violation of parental rights and has the potential to be harmful to the health and safety of our children. Chaplains and social workers do not belong in the school system and certainly don't need unfettered access to our kids, which this bill allows. In Texas, we have an educator's code of ethics, specifically Chapter 247.1, wherein there are guidelines to follow when moving a bill forward. It does not appear these guidelines were followed in this case. No one, not even TEA, has been made to hold these chaplains and social workers accountable, yet they have full contact with children in a private setting. So what happens when something goes awry? What control is there and what recourse has been laid out for such a situation? I personally can find none. This is unbelievably concerning to me as a parent, and these are just some of the reasons why I urge you to reject incorporating SB 763 into our district. Thank you.
Our third speaker is Daniel Chavez.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Chavez. You may recall me from speaking at the last board meeting on behalf of my wife, Cesna Chavez, and myself, who are advocating for a proposal that would improve safety communications on all campuses in LCISD. Since the last board meeting, we have had several Board of Trustee members reach out, asking for additional information, which I have been more than happy to provide. My wife and I have also had meetings with the Safety Coordinator and Director of Safety Operations for LCISD. We are determined to see that LCISD administration further defines the zero tolerance ideology to include communications with parents, particularly when it comes to weapon/gun related matters. Board members, as you are now aware, we are currently on our third request for an in-person meeting with Dr. Nivens. Dr. Nivens, I reiterate my request for 1 hour of your time in person to discuss the matters my wife and I have outlined in our multiple emails. I will reiterate what I have said in the last board meeting. Discretion should not be applied for any safety matters or safety communications where children are involved. Subjectiveness cannot and should not exist when a student makes any type of statement that involves the mention of weapons or guns on LCISD campuses. Again, I make myself available to any board member, staff, stakeholders, or parents who would like to help advocate and drive for a solution around standardization of communications regarding guns and weapons on campus, to reach out to me via Daniel.T.Chavez@gmail.com. Thank you.
That is all, Madam President.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take action on the consent agenda. Are there any items that the board would like to pull? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the current consent agenda? Okay, Mr. Welch makes the motion. Do I have a second? Okay, Mr. Hubenek seconds. Any discussion? No discussion. I now call for the vote. All in favor of approving the current consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let's see. At this time, we'll take action on the action items.
Madam President, the first one is for a TASB Delegate Assembly. So the board just has to nominate who would like to represent Lamar CISD at the TASB Delegate Assembly.
Okay. We will now proceed with nominations for a candidate for position as delegate and alternate on the Texas Association of School Boards TASB Delegate Assembly Board Officer elections. The floor is now open for the position of delegate. Anyone?
Do you want it?
Anyone but John Welch.
I nominate Zach Lambert. He's already done it once. He'll do a great job again.
Trustee Lambert, do you accept the nomination?
If nobody else wants, okay, do you want it? You were the delegate. You were an alternate last year. Would you like to do?
I'll do whatever anybody wants me to do. I enjoy going into.
Yeah.
So somebody,
Likewise. I mean, delegate
somebody
and the
can be
alternate both
delegate
go.
and somebody can be alternate, right?
Since I was delegate last year, I will.
Okay, and,
Heed the floor.
okay,
Okay.
that'll be fine.
So somebody needs to nominate. Well,
Okay.
okay, so how do we do that now? Do we have to?
Wait,
take
did you
that
accept
away?
it?
No, I do not accept.
He did not, he did not accept
And then
it.
I nominate Kay. There we go.
Okay. So trustee Danziger, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I'll accept the nomination.
Okay, okay. Let me read this real fast. Okay, okay.
Do we do it separately?
Trustee, hold on. Trustee Danziger is nominated for the position of delegate on the Texas Association of School Boards TASB Delegate Assembly Board. Are there any further nominations for the position of delegate on the TASB Delegate Assembly Board? No, okay. Nominations are closed. I will now call for the vote. All those in favor of trustee Danziger, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay. So trustee Danziger will serve as the delegate for the Lamar CISD on the Texas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. Congratulations. The floor is now open for the position of alternate.
Do you want, Zach, do you want? I'll nominate Zach Lambert.
Okay, trustee Lambert, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay, trustee Lambert is nominated for the position of alternate on the Texas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly Board. Are there any further nominations for the position of alternate on the TASB Delegate Assembly Board? Nope. Okay, nominations are closed. I'll now call for the vote. All those in favor of trustee Lambert, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. This is all very formal. Trustee Lambert will serve as the alternate for Lamar CISD on the Texas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. Congratulations. Okay, that's it.
All right, next trustees, we have, Mr. Buchanan's going to talk about our next two items. We have design development for elementary school number 35 and then middle school number 7.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Nimitz. Tonight, we bring forth a discussion and possible consideration of the design development for elementary school 35. I would just remind the board that this is our prototype 1. As you remember, elementary 35 will be located on the plot of land that we purchased. That's at the corner of 723 and Bel Air. It sits on the southeast corner of that quadrant. The board in April of 2023 approved Tomas High School's DD and Banks Junior High. So on August the 21st, we had a committee meet. They discussed the 3 options that we had presented last month to you, and they voted on the options. This is our design committee members that showed up to the meeting, not the ones that were invited, but the ones that were able to show up that day. This is the first option that the committee discussed and voted on. This is very similar to the Tomas and Banks design. This was option number 2. This was option number 3. And our committee unanimously voted for option number 1. And are there any questions?
Okay, may I have a motion for the board to approve the design development for elementary school number 35 as presented?
Which option?
Oh,
I'll make the motion that we accept that for elementary 35 prototype number 1.
do I have a second? Okay, any discussion?
I do have one thing, after all, just for the sake of the public and our overcrowding in a lot of our different schools. This is an 800-seat student seat building. Is that the?
Yes, sir. This is our current prototype that we currently have. So there's really no changes in the square footage and the design. It's basically the same footprint as Gray Elementary that we opened up today, or did the dedication of today.
Great. All right, thanks.
Okay, I'll now call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Good evening, Board Trustees and Dr. Nevins. Tonight, we bring forth a discussion and possible approval of the design development for middle school number 7. Again, middle school number 7 sits across the street from elementary school 35 that was just approved tonight at the board meeting. These are the design developments that was approved in April of 23 by the Board of Trustees for Tomas High School and Banks Junior High. Again, the same committee met on August the 21st to discuss the 3 options, and they voted on them. This was our design committee members. This is option number 1, which is very similar to the 3 options the board has approved as of right now. Option number 2. And option number 3. Option number 1 got 12 votes. Option 2 received 0, and option 3 received 1. Are there any questions?
Okay, may I have a motion for the board to approve the design development for middle school number 7 as presented? Can you make it with the, yep.
I move to approve middle school number 7, option number 1.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, any discussion? I now call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now have reports and presentations on the information items.
All right, trustees, so this is a new report that we're bringing every month. This will be our monthly discipline report presentation. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Nava.
Good evening, President Brunzel, Dr. Nivens, Board of Trustees. Tonight, I will be providing you with a discipline update. Let's see. All right, so the 2023-24 Student Code of Conduct was adopted by the school board. This information has been shared with all administrators and guides them in administering disciplinary consequences based on the level of offense. For the purpose of tracking student discipline in schools, it's critical for maintaining order, ensuring fairness, and creating a safe and positive learning environment. It also allows schools to address behavioral issues effectively, provide support to students in need, and continually provide or improve their disciplinary processes. Tracking discipline on a regular basis helps identify and address disruptive behaviors and safety concerns promptly, and ensuring that all students and staff feel safe and secure. In reviewing student discipline, we utilize two systems. One is the student management system, which we refer to as Skyward. This system tracks all discipline referrals that are submitted. The other system is the OnData Suites. This system only collects disciplinary data based off of the PEIMS information report as required by TEA. So not all discipline referrals are state-reported disciplines. So this particular slide is one from Skyward with the number of offenses and the code. And then here's the other. So when we take a look at this particular information, you'll notice that the numbers seems to be a little bit high. So at the time of the report, and this report is really the first 4 weeks of school up to September the 8th. So at the time of the report, there were 5,338 discipline referrals submitted into Skyward. When reviewing the data, we realized that there are multiple referrals for tardies. So many secondary campuses utilize a program called the Tardy Kiosk, which automatically generates a referral when a pass is requested. If we were to remove all of the tardy referrals, the total number of referrals drastically dropped from 5,338 to 2,988, a difference of about 2,350. Some of the highest categories you'll see is FAI, which is in the previous slide, at 461. And FAI is kind of a catch-all code that we use for a multitude of minor offenses that are not PIMS reported. You also have NON, which is non-compliance at 383. You have teacher referrals at 389, dress code violations at 225, and disruptive behaviors at 205. The following slide is a 4-year comparison of the total number of discipline referrals by year for the last 4 years based off of the OnData Suites program. These are the TEA reportable offenses based off of PEIMS. As you can tell, currently we have 812 referrals. If we were to continue the same trend, we would be probably at about 7,064 for the year. But we all know that the first 6 weeks, teachers are trying to get adjusted to kids, so that's usually a low number of referrals during that particular 6 weeks period. So it'll probably be a little bit higher than that if the trend continues. But when we take a look at the overall number of referrals and compare that to the number of students that we have, which is 44,135, the average is about 1.8% of our student population that has received a referral. Okay. This following slide is now looking at ISS, which is in-school suspension, and OSS, which is out-of-school suspension. These are disciplinary consequences that were administered over the last 4 years. Just kind of a comparison. Again, when we look at this particular year, we've had a total of, where is that? Sorry, 1,098 days of ISS or either OSS. Again, the information in the box is just kind of the trend. If we were to continue the same trend process, those would be the numbers at the end of the year. Again, when we divide the number of placements by the number of students that we have, that equates to about 1.3% of our population. Okay. As you know, there are times when a student violates the student code of conduct, which results in removal from the regular educational setting and requires us to place them at the alternative center. This is a 4-year review of, this is a review of last year's DAP placements per 6 weeks. And when you look at the number of total placements for the year, we were at 1,051. Okay. When we take a look at the first 4 weeks of school, we've already had 146 DAP placements. In the little box on the right-hand side, you'll see a comparison of the first 4 weeks versus the first 6 weeks of last year. And again, if we look at the trend, our trend would put us somewhere around 1,270 for the year. This slide here shows us the top 5 disciplinary reasons for DAP placements. We have drug offenses, which are 31, and we can subcategorize those to FCS, which are felony controlled substance. We have DRU, which are drugs and 1 drug paraphernalia. Fights, we have 18. Threats, 17. Again, we can break those up into TRS, which are threats to students. TTR, which is terroristic threats, and then HAR, which is harassment of staff, or we call it threat to staff as well. Okay. Major campus offenses, we're at 17, and then of course vapes and cigarettes or e-cigarettes are at 17. So when we look at the top 5 reasons, 100 of the 146, or approximately 68% of those offenses, are responsible for the DAP placements for this year. Next to it, you see last year's comparison. Similar types of incidences, from drug-related incidents to assaults, fights, threats, and major campus disruptions as well. This slide here kind of breaks those 146 into all of the subcategories. Again, you can look at some of the ones that are highest. AST, which are assaults. DES, VAN, which is destruction of property and vandalism. DRU, or drugs. FCS, felony controlled substances. FIG for fights. MCD, major campus disruption. PHC, physical conflicts. STL, stealing. TTR, terroristic threats, and VAP, vapes. Okay. Here you have a slide that shows all of the DAP recommendations based off of grade level. And you'll notice that most of our DAP placements are freshmen and sophomores, with a few in the junior high level as well. Also, there are times when students not only violate the student code of conduct, but they violate the law. And these offenses result in our SROs creating police notifications, which are then submitted to Fort Bend County District Attorney. And this graph shows the number of notifications based off of the colored track. This is an example of what the report would look like, and you all have the full report in your board book. So what have we learned? We've learned that the increase in the placements for this particular year are a direct result of changes in the Texas Education Code, specifically HB 114, and a much more stringent LCISD Student Code of Conduct this year. We need to become more proactive in educating our students on drugs and drug education, continue to focus on utilizing PBIS strategies to minimize disciplinary referrals by focusing in on early interventions and creating a structured and supportive environment. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I have a question. One of your charts you had in the middle, you had a boxed all the tardies. Why are there so many different, what are all those different classifications for tardies?
Those are just the number of tardies. So when you utilize the tardy kiosk, it's based off of T11 is like 11 tardies, T15 is 15 tardies.
Oh, it's how many you have total. Oh, okay, gotcha.
And so as you can tell, the majority of those referrals in the center there are tardies.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
As a result of the tardy kiosk that we use.
Okay.
Mr. Nava, what are we doing to be more proactive in educating our students on drug use?
Well, I'm working right now with Fort Bend County Regional. We're trying to create some town hall meetings to inform the public and inform the students of the new law and the ramifications of having these drugs on campus. So we haven't quite set the dates yet. We're still kind of working on that, but that's something that we're in the works of doing.
Are we talking about like tobacco and THC, or are we talking about?
So they have a full program that they talk to parents, not just on vaping in general, but the aspects of the law that they're violating. They also have, they have a simulation of a teenager's bedroom with all of the places where kids can hide their drugs and stuff like that. Again, just to help educate our parents about what's out there. All of the jars and cans with false bottoms and false tops and stuff like that.
Are we doing something like that during the school day to assemble the kids and have a presentation like that?
So as of right now, we don't have that planned, but that would be definitely something that we can look into.
To educate them on the consequences possibly.
Absolutely.
Of being arrested and having a record based on something like that.
Sorry, with what you're saying, maybe even have like a speaker, someone who's maybe had that in their past. I don't know, do we ever think about doing stuff like that? Or no, is it like someone who's kind of there to encourage, but also at the same time, this, have someone, this is the law, this is what happens, and then here's someone who's learned the hard way. I don't know.
Absolutely,
Just,
absolutely. Kind of testimonies.
does not someone just standing up there talking, someone who, maybe is interesting and has a story of redemption to tell, something like that, maybe.
Great ideas.
When someone gets caught with drugs on campus, how are they typically found out? Can you tell they're on drugs? Does someone tell on them?
Well, every case is unique, and so there are cases in which the administrator or teacher or someone walks into the bathroom and actually sees them vaping. There are times where the student has lost somewhat of control because they're high, and so you walk in and they're sleeping in class or whatever. They're just kind of out of it, and so a lot of times we take those students to the nurse's office. A nurse does an evaluation of them, and while they're not experts on determining whether they're on drugs, they can kind of tell you on the vitals that the student is not in a normal state.
I had one more question. Can you give some examples of what a major campus disruption is?
Sure. So sometimes a fight, it can escalate where there's a multitude, 2 or 3 people fighting or 5 people fighting. That would be considered a major campus disruption. It could be anything that really interferes with the regular educational setting where multiple administrators need to be called to a specific incident or event.
Okay, thank you.
Do we still do, now that you're 10 program in the elementary schools, do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar with that program.
Oh, someone's
Someone in
nodding
elementary may
yes.
provide me
So
with
they
that
still
information.
provide that program. It's for those that don't know, usually, okay, come on.
Yes, ma'am, we still do that because as laws change when students become the age of 10 and how that impacts them, so yes, we still do that.
Okay, and I don't know if any other board members know that program.
Would you explain that?
Oh, so we have conversations with our students as they become 10 years old. The law impacts students differently if they're 10 years or older. And so we talk with students and provide that information to our students of saying, once you hit 10 years old, if this is something that you participate in or if this is something that happens, you're impacted much differently than when you're before 10 years old because the law impacts them differently.
They have to take more responsibility for their actions. So that kind of program, I wish we could figure out a way to do it for the high school or junior high, because now that you're here and the laws are changing, they need to be fully aware of what they're getting into. And real quick, could you go back to that slide with the color tracks? Was that it? Okay. Yeah, and I really think that some of that, once we can spread these kids out a little bit better, some of that will go down. That's my opinion. That might not be for sure, but thank you.
What's our current, I don't know if it was in one of the slides, but what's the current head count or enrollment at ALC?
As of today, well, that was for September 8th, so that was at 146. As of today, based off of the app that we use, we're at 225.
What's the capacity there?
186. Which means that some of the students that were sent there early on are now having to be returned back to class or to the regular campus.
Someone had told me that there was a waiting list for ALC.
The
kids
waiting
sit
list
on
is
a
really
waiting list?
just, they're waiting for intake. It's not really like you're waiting months or anything like that. We're just, you go through an orientation process. And so the waiting list is really, you're waiting for your scheduled orientation, which is usually a day or two. That's the waiting list.
So can I say, if a student is in ALC, it's full, they've served 6 of their 15 days. When they come back to the school, are they in ISS?
Well, currently they're not.
So they just go back, they just don't have, serve all of their time, and they just go back to regular classroom setting?
That is correct.
What's our reasoning for that? Like, why wouldn't we put them in, is there a reason why we couldn't, if they can't finish out alternative school, that they would come back to a regular, to come back and go into ISS to finish the discipline?
So when
they
you,
were
when you
given?
have a alternative placement, the law is very specific that you have to have a sight and sound barrier between your regular ISS students and your DAP assigned students, which means they can't necessarily be in the same place. You'd have to have a different location for them.
But you're saying they go back to a regular classroom setting?
Right, because they have been released from the alternative center.
Okay, so could we then, in their alternative, whatever that discipline measure was, end it and then take them to ISS for a certain number of days to finish off their punishment or whatever it was that was given to them? Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Like,
But we
instead of just
currently
being
don't
like,
do
oh,
that.
you're off on good time, we need more room.
So,
Bye.
Ms. Potts, if I can interject.
Yeah.
So students who are, I would say just bad or don't serve good time, don't get released early from ALC. So at that time, if a student is released early, they've served their time because they've had good behavior, meaning they can go back to a regular classroom setting.
For like 8 days? I mean,
It depends on the amount of days that student does go to ALC.
Okay. What's the minimum amount of time that someone would get assigned to ALC?
It's typically, it's a 15, 30, 45, 90.
Okay. Okay. So what when y'all are looking at who to release early, you're doing it based solely on behavior? Is it the length of their time there, or a bunch of things?
It's not just solely on behavior, it's some different aspects of it, but it's definitely due to good behavior.
Yeah,
if
so like
released.
someone who maybe has a shorter discipline would be, punishment phase would be.
And a less
sooner.
volatile situation as well.
Okay, so y'all take into account all the factors?
Yes,
It's not
ma'am.
just, okay.
So just because you're the first one in, you're not going to be the first one out?
That's
Right, it's
correct.
not first in, first out, last in,
Yeah,
first out.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay,
And certain children go to ALC for different
yep.
reasons.
So that 225, whatever, that's for both locations?
When you say both locations, you're talking about Powell Point or?
Powell Point and Rosenberg?
That is currently only for the
Powell Point.
Rosenberg location.
Rosenberg? So what's the
Would you
top line?
explain ALC South, would you please?
So so right now ALC has a capacity of 187 students.
Right.
And ALC South will contain the students from K6 or K8, depending on the amount of enrollment. So PowerPoint can hold about 200, 300 students. So the maximum enrollment it can be the additional that. So the maximum enrollment for ALC right now is 187. ALC South will get us an additional 200 slots. Not saying we're going to use all 200 slots, but it can hold that.
Well, I mean, our Rosenberg campus is what, 2 years old? Year and a half old?
Yeah, it's approximately, yeah, it's about that. Right, Mr. Buchanan? Yes.
Are some of these bus incidents too? Is that included in here?
Generally, all the bus incidents are handled by bus discipline. Unless it's a removable offense that occurred on the bus. Sir?
So to answer the question, these are or are not bus incidents?
There may be some bus incidences of which the actual incident was a high level or level 3 or higher offense, which requires a student to be placed at the alternative center. So just because it happened on the bus doesn't mean that they evade going to the alternative center.
Let me better clarify the question. Majority of our bus instances, unless they reach a certain level, which is very minor, very minimum amount of occurrences, they lose their privilege to ride the bus. That's usually our steps that we go unless it reaches a severe offense, and then that's when they get referred to this placement. But very few placements come from transportation into this ALC.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. We will now have reports and presentations on the future action items.
All right, trustees, we have Dr. Waits to come discuss item 11A.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Madam President, Dr. Nivens. Tonight, I'm going to discuss the creation of the policy regarding campus to employ or accept as a volunteer the chaplain under Chapter 23 of the Education Code. So the Senate Bill 763, the following is in the language of the law. It allows the school districts to employ or accept volunteers of chaplains to provide support, services, or programs for students. Chaplains are not required to be certified by the state. If employed, funds will come from the school safety allotment, which has already been budgeted for our additional police officers. This went into effect September 1st. Senate Bill 763 has been opposed by over 170 chaplains across the state, and they have sent a letter to school board members across Texas. So here are current practices. Currently, there is no counselor shortage. There is no budget shortage for staffing counselors. Counselors are trained to provide support services and programs for all students. Any person, including chaplains, can currently volunteer to support students. They all go through a vetting process, and parents must consent to work with their children. A staff may not attempt to proselytize religious beliefs. So here's a recap of what I just said 30 seconds ago. Employ or attempt to volunteers or chaplains, or accept the volunteers or chaplains. Allow chaplains to volunteer to provide support, services, or programs to students. If employed, cannot proselytize religious beliefs. If employed, funds will come from the school safety allotment, which is already being budgeted for our additional police officers, and it's been opposed by over 170 current chaplains. Now, the law mandates that the Board of Trustees has discussed the possibility of creating a board policy for employing chaplains or accepting chaplains as a volunteer. Chapter 23 said we can vote no later than February 1st, 2024. And here's a flow chart of the creation of the policy. The Board of Trustees approves the creation of the policy. Then the Board Policy Committee creates a recommended policy. And then the Board of Trustees approves the policy. Any questions at this time?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of clarifications.
Yes, sir.
Is that the law says the board must vote to look into a policy or not. And so that's why it's a future action item. So next month, it'd be an action item for the board to vote for the policy committee to create a policy or not to create a policy. But the law says the board must act. And so that's why it's being brought to you tonight as a future action item.
I have several questions, and you may or may not be able to answer these. I'm very undecided on this matter that the legislature is forcing upon us to vote yes or no. So I'm trying to explore all the different angles of it. So there's nothing, and I've read the law, it's Chapter 23 of the Texas Education Code, if anybody's interested in searching for that. It's not too long of a code. From what I understand, and I'm not a lawyer, if we were to say yes and develop a policy, these chaplains would not necessarily have to replace our counselors in the schools. They could be in addition to. Is that how you understand this?
That's correct, yes, sir.
I was told that of all the entities formed by the state government of Texas, all the different departments, all the different public safety, that all the prison systems, the public school systems are the only ones that do not have chaplains. As far as you understand, could we, if we were to say yes, we could put some parameters around this thing. I don't think the law would prevent that. For instance, saying we want to do like a trial for 2 years and this policy would automatically expire unless renewed by the board. Do you see any reason why we couldn't do something like that?
That'd be up to the policy committee.
Up to the policy committee, and then
Yes,
they would
sir.
come back to this board?
Yes, sir.
So the law is very vague, but we can put some parameters on this thing if is the way I understand it.
Yes, sir.
So this, Dr. Niven sent us a letter sent to us by some group called, I think it was called Texas Chaplains. Not everybody who calls themselves a chaplain is a true chaplain. Some of the examples is the people who, some of the folks who signed that letter, there was somebody who claimed to be an atheist chaplain. Literally. There was somebody who claimed to be a Buddhist chaplain. And I know Buddhist is a religion, but there's no deity in Buddhism. So you know, as far as our understanding of spirituality, it's a little different from what we think of in the Judeo-Christian sense. But I am interested in hearing from the public on this, and before we vote next month, whether, so it's not as vague, and I think that's a lot of the fear. One of the fears I heard was, we're gonna replace all of our counselors in our schools with these volunteer chaplains, and there's no restrictions on them. I don't think anybody on this board would be interested in doing that. But I wouldn't mind exploring the idea of, like, the professional sports teams, hospitals, police departments, they all have chaplains that are all volunteer. So the way I can see this possibly working on like a trial basis for like a 2-year thing would be maybe the George Ranch High School has an athletic chaplain. You know, maybe the different tracks. Because we talk about educating the whole person and the whole child. There is no separation of church and state in the United States Constitution. And we are all spiritual beings. So I think that was the intent of the legislature. We have to remember that the Texas legislature passed this and the governor signed it for us to say yes or no. So there's a group of folks who do believe that there's some benefit here. And I'm not completely in favor of it, but I'm not outright rejecting it yet at this point either. But I would really like the public's input on this, maybe public comments next month at our meeting, or email me or all of us on the board, and you can find our emails on the website. And I would also like to know the parents and some of Lamar's staff. We have over 5,500 employees. Really kind of, a chaplain could be available for a staff member to consult with, potentially. So there are some positives that I can see. So anyway, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I always ask myself this, or tell myself this, whenever I'm making decisions and planning and thinking about processes. It says, I always tell myself, your intent doesn't always line up with the impact. You have to care about the impact. So I think this could be one of those things with the state, with the ledge. I watched all the sessions and watched the debates on the floor about this, and even to the point where, as they were presenting it to the House, they said, you know, why must we make school boards vote on this? You know, I proposed an amendment for that, and then the person presenting it was like, no, we have to do it. And the person's like, well, that's going to cause division among boards and all that kind of stuff. Why don't we just give them the option? And from the speaker position in the House, he said, okay, we're still going to make them vote. And so I think this is one of those things that your intent doesn't always line up with the impact. The fact that they're, you know, reading the law, I read the law. You can read it in 10 seconds. It's very short when the education code. So there's not enough meat there, I think, for me. There's not enough checks and balances. You know, the litmus test, as someone who has been on staff at a church and has been a chaplain and has been called by the public school system when a crisis has happened at a campus. This is one of those things that I just can't get behind right now because according to the policy and according to there's not enough meat and potatoes there for me to even say, okay, yes, there is checks and balances. There is processes of saying this person is qualified. When it comes time to marry him and bury him, you can go online and get a certificate to marry people in the state of Texas from the Church of the Baked Potato or what, there's random things on there where you can go on there and get a certificate without any background checks or anything like that. So until the state can go in there and give us more, and unfortunately we don't have another session or we have some potential special sessions coming up, this is one of those things that it's like 3 sentences for this portion of the education code, so.
Zach, can I ask you a question
yeah.
on that? And I think that's where, that's where the public is getting a little confused.
Right.
The law is very vague, and it tells us 7 we have to vote on this. It does not say we cannot add more limitations to this. So, brainstorming here, so you'd still be against it if we were to incorporate some of those ideas that you have of, hey, these are the safety rails. We don't want anybody proselytizing. We don't want anybody here trying to talk about sexual orientation. This is not the role. You still wouldn't be comfortable if the Lamar policy of this law says those kind of things?
Right. There, when it comes down to freedom of religion and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of room for interpretation and a lot of room for legal action. And, one of those things like we say we're going to make policy because we trust us 7. And in a couple of years, a couple of us are up for re-election if we get in there. I know the policy committee can come back and change things and edit things, but I don't want to make a decision on something so little meat and potatoes right now, even though we can add to it, we can add more and all that. But with our team right here, I could say, the people on this team that have our district students and our community's best interests at hand, couple of years from now, whenever myself and a couple of others are up for re-election, if somebody else will come in with nefarious actions or have a different definition of a chaplain, say, you know what, no, we're going to do this. We're going to put this Church of Satan or atheist chaplain or whatever, any other form of thing that doesn't align with us 7, there's just a lot of room for interpretation. I believe this law is coming down at the states requiring us to vote. They need to provide us with some more meat on this, I think. If they're going to force us on us, and that's one of the things that we legally have to talk about, and legally we have to vote, but they didn't give us enough information.
What are the requirements right now for someone to volunteer within a school?
Our school does background checks, and we have
just a standard volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all our volunteers go through a background check that the HR system helps us with and goes all the way back, checking, any felonies coming up, any indecency with children, those types of things. So everybody has to go through those checks if they are going to be a volunteer in LCISD.
So even if you're just volunteering in the classroom, like as a parent?
Yeah, yes.
They're working with students, that's our process, is working them through, is they have to have a background check.
Okay, so if you come in and you're going to do something in your 5th grader's classroom and you scan your badge and everything, or your ID,
So you're talking about like classroom helping and just
Yeah.
raptoring in that way?
Yeah.
The Raptor also gives us a feedback on any person who would have that.
Oh, okay.
But with volunteering, there's actually a rigorous
Okay, it's a little
HR
different.
background.
Okay.
And to be clear, Raptor Search is a national database, correct?
Yes, sir.
So Raptor, when you Raptor in, it's not just Raptor. Hey, I can take the Raptor too. When you Raptor in, it's not just like a local Fort Bend County database. This is a national database. So if you've done something illegal in California, especially against kids, it's gonna pop up here. And so then our staff, they're trained on what to do if that pop-up comes.
I did not know that. I didn't know that.
Even after I retired and I wanted to come back and volunteer and work with kids, I had to go through it. It's not real stringent. It's pretty easy to answer a lot of those questions. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. When I first read this and started listening to it, just like some other things, I kept thinking, I really don't know if this is something we need to jump on board with right now, just because I see other school districts in other rural areas that have a hard time getting counselors and social workers, they need that possibility. But I feel like that's not who we are right now. And like you said, I just don't think there's enough meat in this. I would like to kind of step back and say, can we wait and watch what some other people do? Because I want to see how this starts playing out, because there's a lot of pitfalls. Because they might not have gotten themselves in trouble yet, but we all know that there's people out there, and I don't know if I would want some people in front of my child. And again, if they're doing a session, who's monitoring that session? Who's watching what they're saying and doing with that child? You know, and you can say, well, that's the same thing with our social workers and counselors, but they've had all the training that some of these people won't need. But if we, let's say we decided, you know what, we're going to step back and we're going to wait on this, we can revisit it any time, correct? It's not something one and done. If, let's say, our board decided next month not to move forward at this time, somebody could come back and after we've, to me, I want to see what some other districts do. I just don't want to be the first one out the gate. And like Mr. Welch said, I would like to hear, I have been hearing from people. And a lot of what I just brought up is what they're concerned about. How do we know who they are? How do you know, some people don't show always their colors or they don't get caught. So I just don't want to, with a district our size and the amount of kids that we have, we just have to be very careful. And when you have some of these smaller districts that are rural, everybody knows everybody, they have a little more handle on what's going on. So that's just my 2 cents worth at this time.
Trustee Danziger, the only caveat to that is the law says we have to make a vote by February 1st.
What I'm saying is, what if we voted one way? If somebody, I mean, and we watch and we go, okay, there's some possibilities, or they change some ideas, we could bring it back up again, is what I'm asking. Okay. It's not a one and done deal.
My question is more of a legal one. Let's just say we went ahead with the policy. Since chaplain is not really defined by the legislature, I think the people who passed the bill obviously had Christian chaplains in mind. But our hiring practices, I mean, wouldn't that be considered discrimination if we decided we're only going to hire Christian chaplains? Isn't that a lawsuit waiting to happen? And then, so what do we do when Church of Satan comes in and says, I want to be the counselor at your child's school? I mean.
And that'll be the committee to make that decision.
Yeah. I mean, my other point is just, as a Christian, I feel like that role in my child's life, I don't want that fulfilled by anyone but myself, my husband, my family, and our trusted pastor. I mean, I don't want the normal school counselor proselytizing to my kid, and I don't want anybody else doing that either that I don't explicitly trust.
All right, trustees, we have Mr. Buchanan's going to come up, talk about discussion and possible action for next month on master plan principles.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Nivens. Tonight we will bring forth a discussion about our master plan principles. So on February 15th of 2022, our Board of Trustees updated our master plan principles. By updating our master plan principles, it created a feeder pattern. So right now, our prototype elementaries have 6 fifth-grade classrooms built inside the school itself. 25-to-1 inside those classrooms give us 150 students coming out of an elementary school typically. That varies depending on other factors. That creates a feeder pattern of roughly 4.17 elementary schools would feed into a middle school, and then you see the pattern of 625, 625, 650, 650 to 625. This model is based on the 2,575 that we currently have with the additions to our high school. So we're looking at exploring different options of what we could do to adjust those master plan principles. So one thing we did was, we looked at, Fulshire High School has a 1,000-seat addition. What were we to do if we went up to the 3,075 at all of our secondary campuses? What would that do for the rest of our campuses throughout the district? What that would do is it would create a feeder pattern of roughly going from 625, 650 to 775 at every grade level till you get to the senior high level. That would increase going from 4.17 elementary schools feeding into a secondary to 5.17 elementary schools feeding into the pattern. So an example would be our elementary schools going from 800 to 854, our middle schools going from 680 to 775, our current junior highs going from 1,250 to 1,550, and our high schools going from 2,500 to 3,075. So what would that make, what modifications would we have to do? To our typical secondary campuses, we'd have to add 6 additional classrooms at the middle school level, approximately $5 million, 13 at the junior high level, approximately $10 million, 20 at the high school level at approximately $15 million. So the total cost for a secondary campus would be $30 million plus 7% inflation cost added per year when that was going to be open. So what does that look like for each one of our high schools? So if we were to adopt these master plan principles, for our Fulshire High School, we wouldn't have to do any. We already have the seats there at that campus. For Foster, we'd have to add an additional 500 to match. At Lamar and Terry, we'd have to have 1,200 seats. In George Ranch, we'd have to add 500 seats each. At our junior high levels, we'd have to add 325 at Lehman, Briscoe, Wright, and Reading. And at Lamar, we would have to add 125 seats along with George Junior High. At our middle schools, we would have to add 150 seats at each one of those campuses. I would like to let the board know at the high school level, because there's so many more seats at Lamar and Terry, those cost estimates would differentiate at those 2 campuses. But are there any questions about the example presented to the board this evening?
I kind of want to know how you're going to add all those seats to, especially Lamar. You're going to take away the football fields? I mean.
No, ma'am, we would have to be creative, because if we were to do that size of addition.
Because you can't go up.
It would probably have to be a 3-story addition, and we would have to take some different opportunities and plan what that looks like out. But that would definitely at that site have to be at least a 3-story, because we'd have to have drainage for the areas that we're also occupying at that location.
I'm just so old school. I just hate seeing 3,000. I know we already have them packed in there, and then but wow, for Lamar and Terry, because those school hallways are so, well, not much Terry, but Lamar. That's going to be a rough addition to do.
Can I just say, so when y'all did these numbers, I mean, in the area where Terry is or Lamar, is there increased growth? Like, is it a necessity to do it there? Because my thought is we have areas that are growing, and so the new schools going forward, it makes sense for the new schools to be at the highest capacity. Because just for instance, in the purple track, I mean, and I know in George Ranch area, Maroon Track as well, there's just land, and people that's where subdivisions are coming and building. So I guess my question is, would we consider just doing it to the schools that are being built, or the schools that have fast growth around them, or neighborhoods, new subdivisions surrounding them? Whereas Terry, that area, I don't know, because I honestly don't know the area really well. Is there a reason why the numbers would continue to go up? A need to add 1,200 seats?
Well, at this point in time, we could add these, we could change these depending on the board's will, and we could do them just for our future growing up, or we could leave those where they are. We are seeing some growth at Lamar, especially because of the veranda area and some other areas that are growing, and we're starting to see that population start to come back. But again, we will talk about the rezoning. So as we open up more secondaries, the rezoning, how does that look like going forward as well? But all these are options on the table. We just want to present a global feeder pattern of what that would look like as we move forward.
I would think that, going up on a school is going to be much more difficult with kids in the school building than just, say, adding on like they're doing at Foster or Fulshire, because it's totally independent of the actual building. It's not really, I mean, it's affecting people because it's annoying, but it's independent of, whereas if you're adding a level,
Oh, if, we wouldn't be adding on to the current building up, we would have to add an addition, but that addition would have to be 3 stories going vertical with it at that.
I see what
Yes,
you're
ma'am, but it would have to be in addition to that building. But again, we would have to take up other areas that may be green areas right now and do some drainage with those areas, because we have to comply with the, county's drainage.
So bottom line, we could do more research to see, okay, which areas are growing? Where do we need to maybe increase seats at schools? And then go from there.
Yes, ma'am, because right now, secondary 8 is the furthest campus that we currently have secondary-wise that's already been funded. So Tomas High School has the 2,575, so will High School 8. But if we want to go above that, that would be part of our next bond planning process as well.
But that would be easier to do because we haven't built it yet.
Yes, that's correct.
Because I know a lot of people are saying, oh, I don't want 3,000 students, but people keep moving out here. It's, then we have to then we have to build more. At least we could, I don't like it either, but it really is just a fact of life right now that there's the need. And everybody's unhappy that the schools are overflowing, but then they're unhappy when we want to build them bigger, so they're not so full. So there's got to be a happy medium somewhere.
Don't we have another high school that's going to be built south eventually, too? Would that help with Lamar and Terry?
Yes, ma'am, that would be one of our next bonds would include secondary complex number 9.
But I know there's a lot of growth out in Beasley and Kendleton, so
Yes, ma'am.
that's coming too. And Lamar and Terry, I worry about working on old buildings. Like you said, I don't love it, but if we would do it to future buildings, that would be more common sense in my opinion. But when you start working on these old buildings and you keep changing them, which I've seen some of our buildings built and completely, and now I get lost when I go in there going, this was not how it looked 10 years ago because they've rearranged on the inside. That how much construction, I don't know, I'd say wear and tear, but how much can an old building take without giving way on us?
Yes, ma'am, and if the board's will is to make modifications to the master plan principles, when we start our next bond, that would be also the time that the board would say, we want to apply these to just these campuses and not these. So we can work through every bit of that,
And
depending
by
on what
that-
the board wants to do at that time.
And by that time, we will see more where some of the more growth is. Although we know where it is, it's just hopefully it'll.
Yeah, I would say it would be safe to assume if there's a greenfield, plan on greenfield development. I mean, over by Terry off Airport, there's farmland still there. So I would assume at some point that will be apartments or townhomes or something. So I would say as we're leading, we assume growth and don't just say, well, maybe it'll come. I mean, if there's greenfield, there's going to be greenfield development.
This is only for secondary, but we're not considering any additions to like elementary schools.
Not at this time, not unless the board wants to do that. Right now, what we have done is in our new prototype 1 and 2, what we have done is increase the number of sped classrooms, because what we've seen is we needed more of those type of rooms. So we've increased those from 2 to 5 classrooms inside 35 and up after that point to be able to service that student population.
So what did you say the capacity would be for elementary schools? Was it 35 and 36? No.
800.
Currently, right now, we'd like for the enrollment to be around 800, but it'd be 854 is the maximum number of kids that we can put in there.
That would be in the brick and mortar.
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, that fluctuates depending on enrollment. So not all classrooms are completely full all the time.
Mr. Buchanan, what would the cost difference be? And I'm asking a very specific question and asking for an estimate here, so I know you don't have it. And this would take a lot of community input. I'm just asking the question. I don't want anybody to get mad at me. If we were to not build a separate 6th grade campus, but under the same roof, all right. Hang on, folks, I'm getting there. Under the same roof, using the same physical building, have a separation between the 6th grade has its own gym and everything. Maybe the cafeteria would be oriented to in the middle, and the sixth graders eat on this side of the building, and the seventh and eighth grade eat on that. I'm just wondering, would there financially, would that save us money? I know you'd have to have a bigger piece of land for that junior high housing 3 grades, but going forward, long-term, would that save us money?
It would be, I would think maybe 3 or 4% is all it would be, because you're looking at square footage. Square footage is square footage. In land site, if we have 2 separate buildings or they're 2 large buildings on that site, we're still gonna need the drainage, things of that nature. It may save a little bit, but not on construction cost. We'd have to look at the operation side of it to see if there was any benefit to it, but construction-wise, it would be very minimal.
Very minimal.
Yes, sir.
So a couple of things I like the trustees to just keep in mind is for our elementary. So this year, as we talked about, we have rezoning and we have district leveling. And so rezoning is when we are opening up new schools and we're rezoning communities to go to new schools, right? So we have to do that several times this year because we're opening Melton and Randall, Steenbergen. So we're opening up some campuses. We're gonna have to start rezoning and do our ABC committees. District leveling, we have, as we said, we have some campuses that are half full. And so we have some campuses that are overutilized. And these are our new campuses. These are current campuses. And so the board's gonna have to make a decision on if we want to start moving students who have gone to this school A, I won't say any names because I get a bunch of emails tomorrow. But school A, right? School A and school B is several minutes away. But school B is half full, school A is overcrowded, it's crowded. So now we have to level and take some students out of school A and put them in school B, so now we can have level campuses, right? And so that's a very emotional conversation. And I've always said logic and emotions like oil and water, they don't mix. And so it'll be very logical when we're talking about it, but it'll be emotional for the family that has gone to this school for generations. And now all of a sudden my baby can't go to that school. And we've been going to school for 10 generations. So we're gonna have to have the conversations about rezoning and leveling. And so the conversation as, why we have not considered elementaries yet is because we have elementaries that are half full. And so the objective is if we want to level those before we start touching the master plan principles for elementary campuses. We wanna do that before we start touching the master plan principles for elementary campuses. For secondary level, of course, we know, the students are there, right? They're built for 2,000 students, but there are 3,000 students there anyway. So I agree with Trustee Box and what everybody else is saying. The students are there. And so, starting next month, we're gonna start the process of talking, internally and getting our ABC committees together and having those conversations, and then we'll bring that as a monthly report to the trustees to see the progress on that. And trustees, you'll be able to appoint people to these committees also. But we're gonna have to engage in rezoning and district leveling. Another question that we're gonna have to tackle is, in the last bond election, we got quite a bit of feedback from our older campuses, citizens and parents from our older campuses, because we did not touch every single campus in the bond election. And so, we're gonna have to make some hard decisions. We have some campuses that have met their life expectancy. And we have to make a hard decision on, do we continue to have this campus here? Do we continue to put lipstick on this campus? Because it takes a lot of money to put into an older campus versus giving our students a new campus. And I've always said our students deserve the absolute best. And so I know that is also a very emotional conversation for some folks that have been, this campus has been here since I've been living, and don't touch it. That same door has been there since I've been living. But our students deserve nice facilities. I want our kids to walk into a building and they say, man, look at this. And not, my grandma went here, this same old crackers on the wall. Our students deserve the absolute best. And so I'm unapologetic about that. You can look at my history. I'm very unapologetic about that. Our students deserve the best. But those are conversations we're gonna have to have and decisions we're gonna have to make, especially in future bonds, because we're gonna have to start touching every single campus, because we have some campuses that These need a lot more TLC than others. And the last thing I'll say is when we are rezoning and leveling, if you recall a couple years ago, we moved families from Culver to Meyer. And the main concern was, well, Meyer's not as pretty as Culver. Culver was a brand new campus. And Meyer is one of our older campuses. And so, you know, when you start having those conversations, you know, these are things we have to start thinking about and making decisions on. And they're not gonna be popular, and they're gonna be very emotional, but it is what it is. Our kids deserve the absolute best that we have to offer, so.
The district leveling committees and the ABC, who sits on those committees?
So the way we've done it recent past, as the principal appoints, they start with appointing some parents who are members of the directly impacted community. In addition, trustees have an opportunity to provide names of representatives to serve.
Right, from your area. And so, you know, Maroon Track campuses, parents will come from you, you know, and, yeah, so you'll be able to appoint parents.
If it's gonna affect them.
Right. So just to get clarity, trustees, if you would like us, I know Ms. Box asked a couple questions. So to clarify exactly, what would you like to bring next month? Or would you like us to table it for a while? Like, what would you like to see next month if we bring this back to the trustees?
I think we need to go ahead and do it now for future growth. I know that when I was first on the board in 2019, by the time we got to the bond conversations in 2020, there was not time enough to deal with the master plan principles. So I say we get it done now when we're not pressured to do a bond, and then by the time that bond comes up, everybody knows what we're gonna try to do.
Okay. So cost estimates on what it would look like to increase the size of these buildings for the next bond cycle.
Are we saying the buildings we already have or the future bond build?
I liked what Ms. Danziger and Mrs. Box said, is that personally, it would be the being built in the future, not necessarily the current buildings.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what y'all think, but that's kind of what I'm.
And the reason why I said cost estimate, because, you know, when we brought the original, like last year, bond to the board, we had some cost estimates on what it would cost, right? And so if we're going to increase that, as Ms. Buchanan said, if we're going to increase our high schools to 3,075, this is what it would cost. If we're going to increase our middle schools to this is what it would cost. So a future bond could potentially look like this. And so we could bring all that back next month and then bring it to the board for possible consideration.
Is that gonna increase the size of land that we're gonna be, because we've already started purchasing some things for the future? Or would these still fit on what we are doing now?
So applying these to all future buildings, which would be basically secondary number 9 and up, there's enough land on secondary 9. When we looked at the implementation of the high school additions that we currently have, they would fit within those, and currently we're buying more land than what we have for the Foster site, for the Fulsher site, for the George Ranch site. So we would be able to fit those on the sites that we currently have purchased.
And the high school number 8, or that was in the other bond?
That's another option we would bring. So I know we're moving dirt on high school number 7 on Tomas right now, and number 8 hasn't been moved yet, but we'll also bring those options as to what that would look like to increase those to 3,000.
You'll bring some numbers then?
Yeah, we'll bring those options.
Okay.
And for the community's sake, the increases at the locations where we are currently increasing now, so what you had up there, that's in addition to the numbers that we just were in construction under, correct? Meaning, or no, so that's.
I'm trying to understand the question.
So we have construction at Randall and Foster and Fulsher right now. So like Foster, you have to add additional 500 seats in addition to the current 500 we're adding.
That's correct. So
Yeah,
that's why we put the 24-25 capacity, because that includes all the additions that are currently going on.
Yeah. So Randall would have to add an additional 500, so a
Yes.
total addition of 1,000 more seats.
Yes, we would.
But the direction right now is not to touch any of our current
those.
schools, but schools that are.
But just for the community's sake of like, hey, the bodies are here. Bodies are coming.
Oh, the bodies are here, yes, they are here.
So for what you have here, I mean, you're looking at what, 30 million per track?
It would be 30 million for gold, silver, and maroon, roughly, plus inflation, so that's
Lamar would be a lot
90-something million. Lamar and Terry would be significantly more than that, probably, it may be 90 million apiece. So you're looking at probably $270 million.
So you're looking at the roughly the price of a whole nother sixth grade, junior high and high school campus?
Well, remember our secondary number 8, because of when it's opening, it was 490-something million dollars. So it'd be half of what a secondary complex would be.
All those added together?
That's correct.
All right, next board, we have the, it's like an eerie silence came over the room. We have Dr. Chad Jones to talk about item 11C.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Nivens. This evening, I will be sharing a recommendation for upgrading the video recording and streaming solution here inside the boardroom. As a reminder, Texas Government Code 551.128B1 requires that all regular and special board meetings have both an audio and video recording, and that those audio and video recordings be posted on the internet within 7 days of the meeting. Currently, our boardroom has the following setup. It has individual microphones at each of the trustees. It has a remote control, so I can turn on and off from my little station over here on the side. And in-room and lobby speakers, and there are 2 cameras, a board-facing camera, that direction, and a presenter-facing camera, that little guy right there in the middle. On the back end, we have a camera control board. There's actually a little room back there where the Wizard of Oz makes all the magic happen, with a control board with a video switcher that allows us to change the direction of the camera or zoom in and out, as well as select the camera that is shown to the audience. A streaming encoder that sends our video from this room is there, that sends it to YouTube for our live stream. There's also a recording encoder that records our meetings in the event that there is a failure with the live stream. All of our streaming is currently hosted and recorded on YouTube. For our patrons watching at home, our live stream and recordings, they are going to be watching on YouTube. This does limit the environment and how we can and what we can control, since we do not have control over YouTube dynamics, page definition, things like that. There's currently no indexing for any of our board meetings. For example, this portion of the meeting, I believe, was 11C. Indexing would mean that somebody could go in and say, I want to see that portion of the meeting. Click on a link that says 11C, and it takes them to that portion directly inside the video recording. There's nowhere for our community to click automatically to go to portions of the agenda. There's also closed captioning available in YouTube, but that is a limitation on how effective those are. Those are automatically generated by YouTube. The upgrade option that we are presenting to you tonight addresses both our physical equipment and the streaming and recording viewing experience. For the room, we would continue to utilize the current audio setup, but we would add 4 cameras to the room. This would allow to have more views for who is talking during the meeting and will provide a higher quality video. These cameras are also able to be remotely controlled, so that the recommended vendor can remotely control and direct the meeting. On the back end, we would be replacing our current streaming hardware with new streaming and recording encoders. This would allow, this would now point to the Swagit platform. Camera control would no longer be controlled locally and rather remotely controlled by the Swagit team. Streaming and recording would be hosted by Swagit, and this includes closed captioning in both English and Spanish with a grammar check. The subscription also includes meeting indexing, which I discussed earlier. With this new experience for our patrons, our board meetings will now be hosted on the Swagit platform, but would still be found through the LCISD webpage. The updated cameras would provide a variety of views we currently do not have and should be of higher quality. Meeting agendas, resources, and transcripts, as you can see from that screenshot there, would now be on the same page as the hosted video. The Swagit video will include full video indexing, allowing visitors to skip to selected portions of the meeting with a simple click. As previously mentioned, this would also be closed captioned in English and Spanish as well. The initial costs, which would be covered by bond funds that were utilized to do upgrades in this building, total about $70,000. The 4 cameras is $36,600. Caption Prime streaming appliance, that's the technical box that would go in the back, would be $16,500. Advanced caption encoder decoder is about $10,000, and then the installation costs. Annual costs, so this is the annual cost of continuing on with the service. Control software maintenance fee, so this is just an annual, we're gonna keep the equipment up and running for you, is $1,500. The 15 meeting bundle with indexing would be just under $14,000, and then the English and Spanish captioning would be $3,450 annually for a total estimated cost of $18,936. Some additional considerations. One thing I want to point out is the life of our current equipment. Our current video and streaming recorders were originally purchased in 2015. They are still working, but they are getting older. That's an 8-year-old device that's in the back right now, running everything. Regarding ownership of the videos, it's important to point out that while we would be hosting through the Swagit platform, we still maintain ownership of all of those videos. And if at any point we decided to move off of that platform, we would be able to download those videos to have for our own local rehosting in whatever solution we chose to go with. The package recommended is a 15-meeting package. While we may, as a district, have more than 15 meetings, board meetings during the year, it's that package is what they would sell for us and hold us to, because it's about regularly scheduled meetings. We have a regularly scheduled meeting once a month, so that's the package we buy into. They understand that special board meetings may occur, and special called meetings don't impact the total meeting total that we have, so we should be good with that 15-minute meeting package. This would also reduce total staffing for my team. The folks back behind the curtain wouldn't necessarily have to be here for these events, and it's nice to give some folks a little evening off, as well as being able to reduce a little bit of payment for that team as well. Any of the equipment that we would be installing here, the installation, the one-time installation, that has to happen, but these would be physical devices. So if we move to a new facility in the next few years, we could take those cameras and put them in the new facility, as well as the encoder as well. Some districts in our area that are currently using Swagit include Katy ISD, Fort Bend ISD, Spring Branch ISD, and Houston ISD. Do you have any questions?
The city of Rosenberg does too, Art, also.
The city of Rosenberg does. That was the screenshot that you saw in there. There are many local municipalities that use this as well.
So what did we upgrade to? Just more cameras a couple of years ago? Or has it been more than that?
I think the big upgrade a few years ago was actually related to the audio system. So like these new microphones that you have here.
I thought it was more camera.
We added one camera.
Okay.
And so that was one of the upgrades, but I think it was mostly about the audio work for the room.
And what's the life expectancy?
That's a hard one. Anything above 5 years is going to start making me nervous, because at that point, things can start to wear out. This equipment is not used every single day, and so it's not being put through rigorous work. But at the same time, tools not being used every day can also mean they wear out. Full transparency, I'm a little nervous about our encoder being 8 years old. That's borrowed time at that point.
And is there a warranty, or what comes with this?
Anything that comes with this, that's what that $1,500 annual maintenance fee is going to be with this, that's going to be part of their service and maintenance package for this.
Okay.
Dr. Jones, did you explore other options besides Swagit?
I know we have looked at other options. There were several different options that were investigated. Most of them would be things that we would still have to host and handle ourselves. The benefit of this program is that it is something that can be remotely controlled and provides that environment for the indexing of meetings, the closed captioning, and doesn't require as much expertise on our end to do those types of things. Other solutions are mainly going to be things like redoing the physical equipment of this room and just upgrading them, and maybe upgrading our room in the back, but we're still going to be pointing towards something like a YouTube, or maybe we would choose to point to Devos, our internal video hosting solution. But this is the one that I'm most familiar with as far as a hosted solution that provides those types of services.
If the internet is out because of a storm, but we have electricity here in the room, we could record it with our current equipment, if I understand right.
With this solution, actually, it includes a local recording solution as well. So yes, in our environment right now, we have recording encoders, we have internet, we have electricity, we can still record. This solution would have that as well, that if the internet went down, we still have a local recorded copy.
How much money do we spend as a district for your staff to operate the cameras for every meeting?
It's going to be a few $100s maybe every meeting. It depends on how long those meetings are, but it's going to be whatever their overtime, their evening hour rates are for the staff.
So several $100s in staff salary.
A couple. I don't think several.
Let's say 400. Would that be a safe number?
I would say closer to 200.
$200 versus this system, which would be approximately $1,200 per meeting.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure the taxpayers would appreciate that. I mean, I understand the professionalism of it. What we could also do is and there's a bug flying around. What we could also do is have one of our staff index our YouTube and kind of put a summary out on the internet for the folks saying, hey, if you wanted to look at item, 4B, you could advance to this. I'm just thinking, we're spending $200 now, we're gonna have a more professional look, but we're gonna spend $1,200, and that's, I'm thinking about those people who can't pay their mortgage, and because the cost of life is going up, and they're paying more money to Lamar every year. And I'm very concerned about that kind of thing.
Yeah. It is something to consider. I would add the idea of right now, so that would now be new work that we're adding that's not currently in our process that, so we would have to find the time to be able to do that type of work, the indexing ourselves, checking the closed captioning, adding a Spanish translation. Those are all additional services that this comes with that we're currently not doing. And it is real hours that somebody would have to be dedicating their time for that purpose. So I don't know what that, I guess my point to that is I don't know what the apples to apples comparison in that staffing hourly rate question would be.
Yeah, if we were to index it, I'm just throwing that out there, that's an option. I've actually been doing that individually as a board member on my social media sites and for the last couple of meetings. And, you can kind of look at when we started the meeting and kind of go, yeah, okay, it was a couple hours. Dr. Jones stood up and you just forward to, oh, that Dr. Jones, that's when, item 9B began.
Sure.
So that's another option.
Can you go back to the cost breakdown? So, the initial $69,000 will be covered by bond funds, and then would the yearly annual cost also be covered by bond funds?
The annual cost would come out of the annual budget of the district.
Okay, so with the 15 meeting bundle, I mean, I know that's what we do now, but in a year or two, I mean, what if we went back to workshopping and we're doubling that number? So then would it double, or does it kind of?
It would not be a double. I don't have that number with me. They offer a 25 meeting bundle.
Okay.
I can look up what that number is and
Yeah.
provide that for the board to review.
Okay, I would like to see that.
The 25 meeting bundle is the idea of you meet twice a month regularly.
Would it be necessary to have 4 cameras? I mean, what do we need? What would 4 cameras do?
What I think the 4 cameras would do is it provides you a view of this side of the room, this side of the room, and the front side of the room, and then the patron side of the room. So that if you watch some of the other board meetings, a lot of times whenever a board member speaks, they get a tight shot on Ms. Box so everybody can see what she's saying, see her motions. Right now, you just kind of get this generic view of the wide view. That's what the 4 cameras would be able to support, is better directional views for the meeting.
Also, do we have an idea of how many people watch? I mean, I guess we could just go into YouTube and see how many views there were.
You can take a look at that. I did a little bit of research for you. Right now, our current meetings are averaging about 1,500 views. So 1,500 people are watching every single one of our meetings. We had a very popular meeting. I think it was February of last year. I don't know what the topic was. I didn't check that, but it was 5,000 views. So there are many people in our community that are watching our meetings.
Have we thought about maybe asking parents, like doing a survey? How many of you watch the board meetings? How many of you would be interested in, indexing and that kind of a thing? I don't know, just a thought.
Dr. Jones, could we use that, what was the figure, $70,000 to upgrade this room with our current staff and our current situation? Or the equipment you talked about that was purchased in 2015? What if we were to use that money to upgrade this, maybe add a camera angle or 2?
We could definitely investigate some of those options. That would require some additional expertise of my team, some additional equipment that's back there. Again, we're working with a setup that's older, and so it would require several different settings. That one of the things that we would have to consider is a more effective video switcher control panel, because we don't have a lot of control there in the back right now. And if we're adding an additional camera, we have to have something better to work with to provide a better experience. Because if we're gonna buy the camera, we need to make sure we are utilizing it well to provide a quality experience. And so that's gonna be additional equipment that we wouldn't be buying with a package like this, because all of these cameras are able to be remotely controlled. And so Swagat is able to use all of their equipment, their expertise. So we would need to be buying some of the same things, but then also some additional things.
This might be a really dumb question, but you know how when we're waiting for the meeting to start and it's kind of scrolling, you know, whatever the board meeting will, could we sell like advertising for that to pay for it?
I have absolutely no idea, and I'm not gonna answer that one. I'm gonna pass.
So that is something we could explore. School districts are allowed to sell advertising, you know, on scoreboards and newsletters, and I don't see why we couldn't do it for our board meetings as well.
I mean, if it offset the cost a little bit, or at least by half.
I think, yeah, one of the things I'm thinking about is just overall professionalism. We are the fastest, well, one of the fastest growing school districts in Texas, and the end user ability and the just how it comes across. I think we just got to think about professionalism and how we present ourselves to the community as people are moving here and watching us.
Well, and we did look into that a little bit a few years ago for our buses, and what we were concerned about is a lot of the vendors that would maybe buy into it are also our vendors that help with leaf and other things, and so they only have so much. And, you know, I don't want to take away from, so, but that is something we have looked into, but not on the website, but on buses.
Okay, is that it? Thank you. Okay, are there any items on the future consent items agenda that trustees would like to pull for discussion at the October board meeting? No? Okay. Then it is 8:31 p.m. and we are adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, to discuss personnel, land acquisitions, or consultation with our attorney. Are they ready? Are we good? Are we good?
We're good. Dr. J, we're good?
We're now back in open session. It is 9:35 p.m. and we have a quorum. Are there any motions to be made? No. Are there any future agenda items the board would like to add? No. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. It's 9:35 p.m.